Boy, after yesterday, the events yesterday, I think we've got to talk politics. And as you know, Kiri Allan, Sunday night, hits a parked car in Evans Bay Parade, Wellington, fails a breath test, though not to a criminal level, to a misdemeanor level. Refuses, we understand, to cooperate with the police and faces charges, which it feels likely she's going to cop a guilty plea to and take her medicine. But, of course, she's Minister of Justice, so she's got to resign or she would have been fired. So she does that yesterday morning. A cabinet reshuffle. We have Ginny Anderson, the current Minister of Police, becomes the Minister of Justice as well. And in between it all, David Parker slips away as the Revenue Minister. So what does all this mean politically? How unprecedented is it? How breathless should we be? We're joined now by long-time political commentator and dedicated New Zealand First supporter, Chris Trotter. Chris, how are you?
Well, I'm very well, thank you.
You know, I'm never going to let you live that down, the New Zealand First thing. You do know that.
I am beginning to realise this.
All right. Yeah. And gosh, now just moderate your voice a bit, because once again, your crappy phone is giving us some static. Look, okay. Firstly, that was pretty remarkable yesterday. A cabinet minister being arrested by police, failing to accompany a police officer rather than resisting arrest, and we're going to get some expert opinion on what the difference is there in a criminal sense. But that was a hell of a day, wasn't it?
Well, absolutely. And I must say I loved Cameron Slater's tweet very early in the morning. There goes Chippy's quiet start to a new week.
Yeah.
I thought that summed it up rather well. I mean, this is one of those cases, I think, and in the context of your Shakespearean quote of just a few minutes ago, of a character who is more sinned against than sinning, I think, in Kiri Allan's case. I can't help agreeing with those who say that the Prime Minister should not have relied on Kiri's own assessment of her mental fitness.
Yeah.
In cases of physical illness, it is quite common for people to require some sort of clinical endorsement of someone's fitness. And bluntly, neither Hipkins nor Allan were qualified to judge her work reading.
And the fact that she was back at work with a mentor...
That should have been left.
Yeah. She had a mentor and support staff.
That was a mental health...
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have these people called psychiatrists and psychologists who are, at least in a clinical sense, several steps above a counsellor. I don't even think you need to have any formal certification to declare yourself a counsellor in New Zealand. That may have changed over the years, but that was certainly the case some time ago. No, I mean, I think we're talking about the Justice Minister here, and she had a number of other portfolios. So you need to be very sure before you put that person back into her job that you're not putting a very, very weak reed into a place where...
And as I said, she wasn't capable because she required a mentor and special support staff. And I'm sorry, that just means you're not competent to do the job on your own and therefore shouldn't be there. And I know it sounds harsh, but I don't have my training wheels on or someone holding my hand when I walk into the studio here. And I don't expect a Minister of the Crown and a senior portfolio to need someone either.
Well, exactly. And that just goes back to the Prime Minister's judgment, I'm afraid. If that was the only way that the Justice Minister could perform her duties adequately, then clearly she wasn't ready to go back to work.
So why did he say yes? And he said yesterday he wanted her to stay away longer and she didn't want to. How come he got pushed around by his junior? Was that an issue of caucus politics and her having a lot of sway with the Maori caucus and the gay caucus?
Well, that thought has crossed my mind, because there is no doubt that Kiri Allan was the darling of the party rank and file. In a way, she was the next darling.
Well, she was destined, according to all the woke commentators who are now in conniptions, as their cognitive dissonance kicks in. She was going to be the next Jacinda Ardern.
Well, yes, as I was saying, she was the next cab off the rank after Michael Wood crashed and burned, and it may have been in Chris Hipkins' mind that it just wasn't worth the political angst which would ensue if she was kept away longer than she thought was necessary.
And how did that work out for him?
Well, yeah, that was clearly a very serious error of judgment. But I think it's also important to bring into this the extraordinary facts that emerged at Hipkins' press conference yesterday, that his revenue minister has essentially resigned.
Yeah, and I think this is the story we're almost missing. We're looking in the wrong direction, Chris. That was remarkable, that Parker is a senior member of his cabinet, actually, who I said to David Seymour, he's the guy who should have become the new Justice Minister because he is a lawyer and he's got experience and he'd be a great caretaker.
Well, exactly. I was flabbergasted, frankly, to hear that Ginny Anderson had been appointed to that role because Parker was the obvious caretaker. I think he's been an Attorney General in the past, as you say. He's a lawyer and he's a senior minister. He's someone who's been in Parliament for many years now and was precisely the sort of person, I think, that the country had a right to expect would be put into the job in these circumstances. Ginny Anderson is very new. She's, struggling to get her head around the whole police portfolio.
Yeah, she's got quite enough on her plate as it is right now.
Exactly. Now, it's difficult. Back in the ancient times of the Cold War, people used to wait for May Day and see what the order of precedence was on Lenin's tomb to try and work out what on earth was going on in the Communist Party of the Soviet Union and the Politburo. Well, you look at this debacle, and that's what it is, with the benefit of hindsight. And then you take this little nugget of news about Parker, and you rewind a little bit, and
Hipkins completely fudged. Hipkins completely fudged at his press conference yesterday afternoon the issue of how that happened.
Yes, he did.
He gave no clear answer. Was Parker going to do this anyway? Was he going to resolve? Oh well, this happened, and we get the opportunity. Come on, you didn't plan for Kiri to, get drunk and hit a parked car.
No. And the other thing to remember is it wasn't just Parker who was really taken aback by the captain's call to basically wipe the tax policy. It was Robertson as well. Now, when you put Robertson alongside Parker, these are two very senior politicians. I would like to know exactly now where Andrew Little stands vis-a-vis the decision-making at the top, because, you're looking at a scene now where people are coming and going, and you're not entirely certain that they're the right people.
It is chaos. It is political chaos, Chris. I don't think you can describe it. And just hearing you roll it all out there. So the party's divided on tax, on the most fundamental issue, really, a party about social justice. It's completely divided on tax. And in fact, some people are walking away from the Prime Minister as a result of his captain's call on that. You have the woke identitarian group who are self-imploding, as some of, I guess they're leading like Kiri Allan just absolutely disgraces herself for whatever reasons, for whatever justifiable reasons, whether it's mental health or not. And they are literally dead in the water, it would seem. I wonder too, Chris, whether or not, let's call this a car crash. Who was really driving when Labor hit the parked car? Was it actually Jacinda Ardern who just jumped out and said, I'm out of gas, bye. Chris, can you deal with the police? It's almost as if she has walked away from the scene of the accident and left someone else to clean up the mess.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that had she continued in the role of Prime Minister, things would have got, I'm not quite sure
how they could be worse.
Quite as bad.
Yeah.
But they would certainly have gone from bad to worse. I mean, I think she made the right decision. It's going to be quite a difficult job for future historians, I think, to pinpoint the moment when Saint Jacinda became, that woman.
I'm going to give it to you. I know when it was. It was when she said, yes, I am creating two classes of citizen.
Well, yes, you wouldn't be the first person, to really highlight that moment. And certainly in saying that, she broke her word to the country, because she had given an undertaking that this would not be necessary. And we have seen, the consequences of that reversal on vaccine mandates in Parliament grounds. And that whole incident, I think, changed the mindset of the country. I think it's underplayed, or in a funny way, overplayed by the Paula Penfolds of this world into, something approaching the apocalypse. But I nevertheless believe it was a turning point in New Zealand, simply because of the level of polarization it not only revealed in the country, but which I think it continued to aggravate. And certainly I think Jacinda Ardern copped a lot of that flack, more perhaps than she was willing to endure. But things have not gone well. I mean, there must be people in the Labour Party who believe they're under a curse, because my own view is that Chris Hipkins is a very solid and capable politician.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
I watched that press conference live yesterday. You were obviously there yourself, and
no, I actually had young Benjamin there. Young Ben got in his first question to a Prime Minister. He's quite excited.
Yeah. I mean, in the circumstances, because it was pretty hard to imagine things getting much worse. But he handled it with extraordinary, what the French would call sang-froid, that sort of coolness under fire. I was impressed, but, poor Labour Party people. I mean, it just, first there was Stuart Nash, and then there was Jan Janetti, and then there was the Maori member from the East Coast.
But essentially now he goes into election campaign having lost, more ministers than even he can remember, with a finance minister who clearly isn't friends with him or doesn't agree with him. He has also essentially lost a minister in David Parker, who has walked away. He must be feeling quite lonely right now.
Yes, and it's also important to remember that there were three people who were absolutely key to the last 6 years: Jacinda Ardern, Grant Robertson, Chris Hipkins. They were the people who had worked alongside Helen Clark. They won their spurs in the Beehive. They were the tight three. And you look now, Jacinda is gone. Grant Robertson has seen Chris Hipkins sink his social insurance policy.
Yeah.
And now the tax policy is all shot to hell. I mean, Hipkins, I wonder whether he now sits and thinks, damn it, that tax policy would have been really helpful right now because it would have shifted people's attention right away from all this, which is true. Because what Labor needs more than anything else now is a mission, a mission that they can put before the people and say, you like this? You got a choice. If you want this to come into being next year, 2024, you know what to do. Vote for us. If you don't, that's fine. Leave it to Christopher and David, and good luck to them. But we've got this idea on tax. We're aiming for a fairer society. This is how we plan to do it. Give us the tools. We will finish the job. But that is the only way they can win. And Chris Hipkins, from the other side of the world, just ditched the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it staggered me because...
So of the gang of three, he is the one left at the scene of the car crash.
Yeah.
And it is a car crash.
You're loving this.
Where are you?
You're loving this car.
All right, Sonny. Who was in the car with you? Well, she's giving a speech in Sydney this weekend. And who knows what Robertson's doing. The other thing too, I wonder, Chris, when we look at polls, and there has been, and in the echo chambers that I doubtless dwell in without being self-aware enough of them, people have been saying, why aren't the polls moving more against Labor? Why isn't there more of division? I think an incident like this, meaningless in the wider political context as it is, someone breaking up, not dealing with the breakup well, drinking too much and praying in the car, but also happened to be the Minister of Justice. I wonder if this doesn't give a lot of voters or people who maybe were clinging on to Labor or making excuses for them, it gives them a very simple reason to say, no, I've had it with them. I am going to change my vote. I'm going to vote centre right rather than centre left.
I'm not so sure. As I said, more sinned against than sinning. And I think there is probably a generational divide at work here. I think an older generation was saying, I don't care how upset you was, you do not get into a car when you're being drinking, especially when you're a minister of the Crown, when you have your own chauffeur-driven vehicle available to you 24 hours a day. What the hell was the woman thinking?
And the younger generation will be, why didn't she catch an Uber, Chris?
Well, yes. But I also think that there's probably a great deal more empathy available from younger people. They are closer to those moments in their lives when things have gone badly wrong, when their hearts have been broken, when they have done stupid things. And some of them have got into the same sort of trouble as Kiri did on
Well, I have.
Sunday
I'll
night.
be honest, I have. I've been, DUI'd. Not a pleasant feeling.
Yeah. Look, mate, I came very close. I mean, I was one of the people in the vehicle who was very lucky long ago. But the point is, they were not subject to the basilisk glare of the news media. And they moved on with their lives. They may have got a fine. They may have lost their license. But nobody apart from friends and family knew.
Yeah.
And, I think there is a well of empathy among those of us who have done stupid things and got away with it or moved on from it without having just this cacophony of media interest.
Oh, come on, Chris. No. You're laying it on too thick now. The media didn't crash the car. The media didn't resign.
Damn?
The media didn't resign. She did. That's all on here. Don't blame the media, and she's a minister of the Crown, and it's completely legitimate for our news media to highlight this.
Yeah. But taihoa, just a bit. I'm not saying the news media shouldn't have covered it. Of course they should. it's major news. People like you and I are going to delve into this as deep as we can. Right? I'm just trying to portray what it's like on the receiving end of this.
Yeah.
I mean, you go into politics.
I know.
That's your
I know.
choice.
I've been on the receiving end of stuff like this, and it's awful.
Yeah, and it is.
And don't get in the game if you're not prepared to pay that price, Chris.
Exactly. That was the famous advice of Harry Truman, President Harry Truman. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Yeah. Do you think Kiri Allan will? Do you think she stays on as an MP?
I would be surprised if she elected to put her hat in the ring again. I would be very surprised.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be advisable.
Yeah. And the fact is, look, what, she's 39, is it? Your age?
I don't know what
it is, but look, she has got, and if she was listening this morning, which I'm sure she's not in our demographic, as it were, but she's got a bright future ahead of her. And it's not how many times you get knocked down or how hard you get knocked down, it's how you get up again. And it just strikes me that Kiri Allan is someone with an energy and some talents that are going to be useful to the wider world in her life if she just maybe deals with the demons that the Prime Minister's mentioned.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is a person from the wrong side of the tracks who has, in a very real sense, pulled herself up by her own bootstraps, to use that corny old right-wing trope. But I think one of the other difficulties that Kiri will have encountered in contemporary politics is the extraordinary weighting of professional and middle-class people who now occupy the political zone. I think someone coming from a working class background, a provincial background, is really going to struggle.
Against the lanyard-wearing Chardonnay sippers. Yeah. Look, the other thing...
Very much so.
Yeah, the other thing too, I guess, though, the stuff I've indulged in a little bit of it this morning with a column by Joel Maxwell, who says that, because she's Māori and she has to be allowed to be imperfect. I think there are a few faint screams of, it's because she's a woman, it's because she's gay. It's not, is it, Chris? Doesn't matter, a white heterosexual bloke, ex-All Black minister would have got exactly the same treatment as Kiri Allan has in these circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't get pissed, jump in a car, have a crash, and then argue with the cops when you're the Minister of Justice.
All right. Now, I have to ask...
Not a scenario that works.
Yeah. I have to ask, Chris, you obviously went to the New Zealand First campaign launch.
I did not.
Missed it.
I did not.
What, and this is just a very quick question because I think it is going to become in the weeks ahead a big issue. Do you think Winston can make it to 5%?
I have never doubted Winston Peters' ability in the last few weeks of a political campaign to pull off small political miracles. I didn't go. I had a family emergency, but what I did is look as hard as I could at the images that were broadcast, and there were a goodly supply of people there, and that's a very important signal. If there had only been 100 or so, you would have been looking at a party that was dying.
Yeah,
there were clearly a lot more people than that. The other thing is, and this I think is worth people just filing at the back of their minds. There was a very, very lively report of what was clearly a very lively conference. I think it was in the Herald yesterday. What the report described was a living party, a party where the rank and file still had some say, where they still had remits put forward by members which were debated openly in front of the news media, and where there was no sense at all of the heavy hand of caucus or the party apparatchiks controlling everything, which is clearly evident in virtually all the other political parties that have a chance of entering Parliament these days.
Yeah.
So that actually filled me with a little thrill of recognition of the way politics used to be done in this country.
Yep. It's called old school, Chris, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, it is. And I'll tell you what, for younger people, they've never seen it. I grew up with it. You and I grew up with it. We remember when the state broadcaster devoted 20 minutes at the end of the day to the coverage of the major parties' conferences over 3 days. Yeah. So that was a full hour of coverage of political news.
Oh, that was democracy, Chris. Do not worry. Look, we're short on time. You are backing a winner in New Zealand First. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Always a great pleasure talking to Chris Trotter, despite the crackly phone line.